Call the meeting of the Waxahachie Independent School District Board of Trustees to order. Let the record show we have 5 trustees in attendance. This meeting has been duly called and notice of this meeting has been duly posted for time and manner required by law. First item on our agenda will be our budget workshop. Budget workshop number 3. Mr. Calden.
Thanks, sir. Good afternoon, board and Ms. McCutcheon. A special budget workshop number 3 this year, so we will finish out with 4, but there were some really big items that were left kind of hanging as a result of legislative action. So we kind of want to go through those with budget workshop number 3, the big one being, quite honestly, staff compensation. So new developments, kind of want to talk about things that we've now learned. So last time we had our budget workshop was in June, and we were still, we kind of heard a good bit of the legislation that had been passed down in Austin, but we didn't know a lot of the specifics. We're still learning some of those specifics as we go through, but we have a much better understanding of some of these funding streams at this point. So we know the state has increased basic allotment, $55 per ADA, so that went from $61.60 to $62.15. As a district, we anticipate next year that that'll yield about $610,000 for the district. Staff retention, the board, or the legislature, sorry, has found a new allotment called the staff retention allotment. So this is not the teacher retention allotment. This is the other retention allotment. This is the staff retention allotment. $45 per ADA, we anticipate that to yield about $500,000 from state funding. So all told, these 2 items, while basic allotment is not directly related to or mandated for staff pay increases, it is available for anything that the board would like to use it on. I differentiated it from the 2 that are further down the list because they have specific things that the legislature would like for us to prioritize with those funds. So basic allotment, staff retention allotment yield us about $1.1 million that are available for staff increases. There's also the teacher retention allotment, which I didn't put on here because the teacher retention allotment, it essentially is just that pass-through of funds from the state for those that are on the teachers' pay scale, that are teachers in the eyes of the state. That definition has been rewritten a little bit with House Bill 2, but that's for those that are on pay steps 3 through whatever to receive that $2,500 based on our size of enrollment, $2,500 at steps 3 and 4, and $5,000 for steps 5 and above. So additional funds from the state, the school safety allotment, it was $10,000 per ADA and $15,000 per campus. It has been increased by an additional $10 per ADA to $20 per ADA, and an additional $18,540 per campus. So it's right at $33,540 per campus plus $20 per ADA. Overall, we anticipate that to yield about $800,000 for the district. Mind you, we spend about $1.1 million on salaries and security alone before we start counting our SRO cost. So this is going a long way to help us towards those security costs that we've already incurred as a district. You could consider them additional funds if you would like for additional or for the purposes of offering a staff increase, but they do have a purpose on that school safety allotment. And then there's also the allotment for basic cost, $106 per ADA, and this is to go towards transportation and utilities and other essentially fixed or overhead costs within the district. We anticipate that to be just under $1.2 million, about $1,187,000. So overall, new funding monies from the state, again, not including the teacher retention allotment, about $3.1 million. So kind of wanted to, board, it is a workshop, so feel free to ask questions, interject at any point, but let me explain a little bit of the crazy. So in putting together this presentation, I really put it together in the way I was thinking through how do we go about identifying funds available for staff compensation, whether it's hard currency in hand, whether it's increased to benefits. So I hope that the thought process will make sense as we get all the way through it, but that's why you're going to see kind of a trail, if you will, to get to what the actual proposal is. So back to budget realities. Board, we talked in March and you reaffirmed in June that these are our priorities going into next year, and so it is to grow fund balance. I've caveated that a little bit with a balanced budget. That's what I've heard from the board through this process is Yes, we want to do the things that are on this list, but we want it within a balanced budget. We do not want to adopt a deficit budget to accomplish our priorities. Our next priority in Tier 1 is a staff salary increase. I took that based off of your feedback for all staff, not just certain clumps of staff. And so that really is part of our proposal that you'll hear in just a minute, is for a staff salary increase for all staff. And then we have other things, Lumpkin's practice field, and then our Tier 2 and Tier 3 items. So the next stop on my magical journey of trying to figure out how all this works is looking at audit reports. I want to know what our district looks like compared to our peers. I know what our district kind of looks like as a whole, but how do we compare with our peers, primarily in Ellis County? And one way I was looking at this was to say, okay, by functional expenditure, by functional category, so function 11 is instruction, 12 is library materials and resources, 13 is curriculum and instruction development. How do I compare with other districts in our area on our expenditure types? So I made a couple of charts, and so I'm looking at instruction-related expenditures here. So functions 11, 12, 13, directly related to the instruction of students. As a whole, Waxahachie ISD spends about 60%, 59.98% of all of our expenditures on student instruction. Whether it's function 11s, 12, or 13, within that three-function range, we're spending about 60% of our funds. You'll see we're in really good company. Ferris is a little bit higher at 62%. Ennis is about 59.3, Red Oak about 54, and then Midlothian about 49.8 or 50%. So that 10% delta between Waxahachie ISD and Midlothian ISD, you would take that 10% times our $123 million budget, that's about a $12 million difference in spend just in functions 11, 12, and 13 between us and Midlothian. It's not right, it's not wrong, it's just a fact based off of 23-24 audit report. So then I moved on to the leadership functions. Function 21, 23, added those together. Waxahachie spends about 8.5% of our budget on, or of our total expenditures on leadership, which is instructional leadership and campus leadership. You can see that we are a little bit higher than the other districts in our county, but we are not grossly out of line. We're about half of, or 3/4 of 1%, a little bit higher than Red Oak. Everybody else kind of in that same range, about 6.5%, 7%. We're at about 8.5%. Then I also looked at the student services. I call them student services. We're going counseling, nursing, social work, food service, transportation, and co and extracurricular activities. As a whole, the district spends about 13% of our funds on that. Red Oak is about 14.5%. Everybody else is 11% or just shy of 12%. So again, we're in the neighborhood, we're in the ballpark. None of these from 11 through 36 really surprised me in terms of, wow, we are way above or way below everybody else. Sure, there are outliers here and there, but overall, we spend about 81.5% of our funds on students, between student instruction through co and extracurricular activities. From function 11 to function 36, we spend about 11.6% of our budget. And so does just about everybody else. Everybody is about 76.5%, 77% through 81.5%, 82%. Midlothian's a little bit different. They have a TERS, a tax reinvestment zone, that requires greater expenditures in a function 99 that makes their financials a little bit different. But realistically, not only do we spend the vast majority, like we spend more on students in our budget than everybody else did in 23-24, I don't believe that was an outlier. And I believe these are generally kind of comparable numbers. So it tells me we're spending our money in the right places. We're spending our money on students for the most part, because I know the next thing that I normally hear is that we are top heavy and we spend too much on administration. So I combined functions 41, which is general administration, through 53, which is data processing and includes security, and it also includes maintenance and operations from a plant perspective. We spend about 17% of our funds on what I would consider your general administrative expenditures. You can see we are by no means are we the leader in this category. We're pretty close to Midlothian. We're about 0.5% more of our expenditures than Midlothian does, but we're in a solid second. To alleviate, now my next thought went to, well, is that skewed by any one stretch? If I'm really looking at maintenance in with admin, is maintenance skewing our spend admin? So I looked at just admin. Our admin's about 2.9% of our expenditures. Midlothian's about 2.8%. Everybody else is 3.5% or higher. So all of this info to tell you that I really believe that for the vast majority of the way we spend our money, we're not out of line. There are no more radical big shifts that we as a district need to be looking at that, hey, we are way over here or way under there, needing to make those catches, or needing to catch those up in next year's budget. So it's a comforting feeling knowing going in, hey, there's not a radical shift that we have to make to be more in line. Not that we have to do what everybody else is doing, but why would we be so far out of line from everybody else? So that was a good feeling. That was a, hey, woo. Now we're just down to compensation plan. We're not worried about moving big rocks. So, compensation plan. I expected a question already so that I could do that, but here we go. Proposal highlights for the compensation plan. Board, we are proposing to start our teachers, librarians, counselors, and nurses at $57,000 next year. We're currently at $54,600. We know that with increases from other districts that's not going to remain competitive to stay at that level. While the legislature did not appropriate funds specifically for teachers on pay step 0, 1, or 2, we know that it is incumbent on us to remain competitive so that we can continue to get good staff in our district. The legislature did segregate teachers from librarians, counselors, and nurses. We know that there's a minimum salary schedule as required by the state of Texas that lumps all 4 of those groups together. So we did want to try the best that we can to keep them together because we know that would be a really monumental shift to start segregating and only advancing teachers and leaving everybody else out. We are proposing a 5% pay increase for all auxiliary, clerical, paraprofessional, and employees who are classified on the professional scale. This is where our librarians, counselors, and nurses would fall in, so they would be seeing a 5% increase on those steps. There is a little caveat there that I'll come back to in just a minute. We are proposing a 3% pay increase for administrators, and we're also looking, again, holistically for our staff to try to make sure that we are getting the best staff and taking care of them the best that we can. We are looking to increase the monthly health insurance contribution from $245 per employee to $300 per month per employee. That would put us more in line with our peer group. Overall cost of these proposals right here is estimated to be $3.5 million. The estimated leaves me a little bit of concern, and I'm sure it does you too, but I don't fully know where all of my staff are going to fit at this point on these scales. So additional people in the 0, 1, and 2 range are going to move that scale a little bit because, again, 0, 1, and 2 are not funded by the legislature. That's funded by the district. So I'm going to roll to the next one that kind of gives more highlights on that teachers, librarians, counselors, and nurses. Again, starting pay of $57. Teachers on step 0, 1, or 2 would receive at least a $2,300 increase. So in making the adjustments in the starting pay from $54,600 to $57,000, there's going to have to be at least a $2,400 increase in there to get from $54,600 to $57,000. So in realigning our steps, one step is looking at about a $2,300 increase. The step 0 would see a $2,400 increase, but we would get our steps back in line to where there would be a little bit of an increase between 0, 1, 2, 3, et cetera, et cetera. Teachers with 3 or 4 years of experience would receive $2,500 increase as funded through the teacher retention allotment, and teachers with 5 or more years experience would receive a $5,000 increase as funded through the teacher retention allotment. Librarians, counselors, and nurses to receive increases equivalent to the teacher increase at steps 0 through 4, and then a 5% increase from there on. So we did not want to have our librarians, counselors, and nurses necessarily receiving more than the teachers were receiving, but we wanted them to be on par with the teacher scale. But when we started getting to the $5,000 increase that came with year 5, for some steps, that's over an 8% increase, and that was not something that we could just keep up with our funds that were coming from the district. So,
Hi.
yes, ma'am. At this point, questions or comments?
Comments. The starting with the first one, the 57,000.
Yes, ma'am.
That's going to make us the lowest paid school district for beginning teachers in our area. And I just don't think that's acceptable. You know, I've been giving this whole thing a lot of thought the last few days. And Red Oak is gonna do 57.6, Ennis is gonna do 57.5, Midlothian 60. I just don't think Waxahachie should be the lowest paid one. What I would like to see us do, I know we can't match Midlothian, I know we don't have the money, but I would like for us to at least be 58.
Okay.
And for this, the teachers, counselors, and nurses, I would like to see them stay exactly where they have been
Okay.
on the teacher scale. I just don't, they've always been on the teacher scale, and I think we need to work towards that. I also think that our lowest paid employees, I took 5% of a custodian's pay, and it was 72 cents at a 5%. So I would like all those in that category to at least receive an 8%.
Okay.
You know, that's the same way with clerical and paraprofessionals. That 5% won't even give them, and I was looking at the midpoint, won't even give them $1 an hour raise. Let's see what else I thought. You know, our administrators, and I know our administrators make a lot of money, but they do a lot. And I would like to see them get more than a 3% raise. But to go back to our counselors, nurses, and librarians, the state, and you said it yourself, the eyes of the state, sometimes I think they're closed. They don't know what we do. They don't know what happens in a school. They're blind to that. And for them to like cut out nurses and librarians and counselors from that, and also to leave out administrators, everybody but teachers, and teachers should be taken care of. I'd like to give them more than the 5,000. But I think everybody else needs to be treated fairly also. That's just my thoughts.
Yes, absolutely. I don't disagree with you. We had conversations about the last meaningful increase from the legislature being in 2019, and we know what inflation has done since then. So yes, I would love to be able to do more within the confines of what the legislature has given us and within the confines as directed by the board of a balanced budget. This really was an even plan in terms of making sure that everybody received something that would be hopefully meaningful to them without over-enriching one group over anybody else. As far as, Ms. Timmerman, to your comment about starting pay, I know that we're not the leader in starting pay right now, and realistically as a district, we've been kind of aiming for those teachers of experience. We can go back and relook and look and see if there's a plan to make us the leader other than Midlothian at that beginning pay level. But realistically, I think a lot of this, and we've had some conversations, you know, as a whole and as cabinet, some of this boils down to just the number of staff that we have on our payroll. And so the more staff we have, then the smaller the pie is going to be when it's divvied up for everybody. The fewer staff you have, the larger piece, because everybody's operating with the same, you know, one pie to be able to distribute. So that's kind of where that budget reduction committee came in the fall, was to try to identify those positions that we believe that we could change or reutilize in a different manner and perspective and be more efficient as a district, with the hopes that that would free up some funds to be able to add into this equation. And so all in, all told, I think that kind of what we're talking about right now, while it's not set in stone, I believe is a good step towards it. But we definitely can look at auxiliary and custodians and paraprofessionals and clericals at an 8%, And then we can look at leaving librarians, counselors, and nurses on the teacher scale.
Mr. Calden?
Yes, ma'am.
First on the scales, I had a question about diagnosticians. They're on the, on your pay scale, diagnosticians, there's another special ed one. So they'll be receiving the 5%, is that correct?
I am going to defer that one to Ms. Burkhalter because with the way the state has written who qualifies for the teacher retention allotment, it may vary by position and by circumstance.
Okay.
Ms. Kriegel, on our plans, the diagnosticians, SLPs, OTs, they would receive 5%, like all the other staff, but they wouldn't receive the $5,000 that is intended for
Okay,
teachers.
so, they'll receive 5% or 5,000, is that what you just said?
No, ma'am, they'll receive the 5%.
Okay,
The $5,000 was reserved specifically for teachers.
okay. And so, understand the bill is if they, would those people qualify to be in a different category that would get the 5,000 if they have 4 hours of student contact every day?
Okay, so if they're coded as 087 teachers, that means that they have at least 4 hours of direct teaching.
Yes, ma'am. That's what I'm
And they give grades.
They don't have to give grades. but
We are developing a process to determine exactly who qualifies in that area.
Okay, I just didn't know if they spend 4 hours a day with students, is one of the qualifications. Okay, back to, I agree with Ms. Timmerman and I did the math a different way. Let's say that we have a janitor that makes $20,000 a year, which probably would be on the high line, I would think, or maybe, I don't know. But they would get $1,000 a year, and that's nothing, you know, in today's inflation. But I do agree with Ms. Timmerman. Now, one thing, though, we talked about at the March board meeting and at the March workshop, that I believe it's 1.3 million. My vision is horrible tonight. A little bit too much sun on the drive-in. 1.3 million that we saved by the Budget Reduction Committee. And I believe that the understanding was that all these positions were cut off campuses. Basically, we're hurting where the rubber meets the road. We're not going to have the permanent subs. We've cut aides. We've cut, I've got a long list, cut the library aides out of the junior highs, changed through attrition, or getting rid of elementary librarians. I can't think of the others. But anyway, we cut a lot of things for 1.3 million. And I'd like to see us using that 1.3 million to justify that. Now, I understand, going back to the House bill, to that line, when we go back and look at all of the fund, we have to fund $800 per $5,000 teacher. And then we have to cover TRS for any of these new people that receive the teachers' the staff retention allotment. So have we figured out how much we're going to have left in our, I believe it's that basic cost allotment, 106 per AD? Hey, have we figured out if we're going to have any money left out of that?
No, ma'am. So that covers utilities, it covers transportation, it covers insurance, it does cover the retirement match contribution from the district. So all told, those funds will definitely be utilized throughout the district without just a bunch of it sitting around. But no, ma'am, we have not done the math to figure out how much of these increases would specifically eat out of that pot.
Right.
To address your other comments, the Budget Reduction Committee work that was done this year, I believe in talking with Ms. Burkhalter, that was presented in May, and we said that was about 1.6 million that we would be able to save. But we also talked about that being through attrition, so that was not a reduction in force. That was not necessarily going to be all funds realized up front. And so in talking with Ms. Burkhalter and looking at the needs of the district, there's a good number of those positions to the tune of about 1.3 million of those funds that have been reutilized and reinvested into positions to address students and student needs. Vast majority of those are going back into special education positions to address student needs, and IEPs, and new enrollees within our district. So right now, Ms. Kriegel, our efforts through the Budget Reduction Committee really is a budget reallocation committee at this point. Our total savings would be about $300,000 overall for the year. With that, our funding increase and all these allotments from the state's about 3.1. Our proposal for staff increases is about 3.5. So that would utilize that 300,000 that we'd still be saving, 250,000 that we'd be saving from the budget reduction work, putting that in with the allotments from the state to yield our proposals for you for staff increases.
The school safety allotment, are our aides, our marshals going to receive an increase out of the school safety allotment?
Our marshals would be receiving increases according to the pay scale, which would be that 5% proposed increase for our school marshals.
Do you have a quick calculation on how much more it would cost if we did do the 8% as proposed by Mrs. Timmerman? Ballpark.
So I looked at auxiliary coming in because I anticipated there would be a question about auxiliary. Ms. Timmerman, I do apologize, it did not include clerical and paraprofessionals, but auxiliary just on itself was $115,000 for every 1%. So it'd be about $350,000 for auxiliary to go from 5% to 8%. Best guess would be to probably double that because while there are a good number of people on auxiliary, I'm adding other criteria, paraprofessionals and clerical. So I would imagine, rough guess, 700 to 800,000 would be my guess for another 3%.
And would that put us at a deficit budget?
At this time, I don't have another mechanism to keep us from a deficit budget by adding 800,000 to the budget. So yes, that would throw us into that deficit category.
Ryan, how about the money that you get, like when we did the $700 bonus last year? How about that money? How much was that total?
So this past year, what we did is we took a little bit of our surplus health insurance and we reallocated that for that staff bonus at Christmas time. We do have a budget right now for a staff payment at Christmas. It is not $700. It would be the net $200 for staff. We could always look at eliminating that, but I do not have a cost for you right offhand. It's about $260 or so per employee for the gross, and then we net it down to 200. So 260 and 100 or 1,700 employees. I don't have a good math answer for you, and I don't have my calculator on me.
Mr. Calden,
Yes, ma'am.
I understand that now we are going to receive our money from the federal government. Do we know how much that is?
I really do not know. I anticipate it being a continuation essentially of the same funding that we've been receiving for Title II, Title III, and Title IV. I know that Title I is roughly $1.1 million, $1.5 million, somewhere in that range. But the Title I that was included in the holdback was not your basic Title I, that was your after-school programs, which we don't receive funds for. I want to tell you that Title II is in the neighborhood of $500,000. Title III is maybe $200,000. I don't really know about Title IV. But all that to say, the release of those funds by the federal government essentially meant we didn't have to transition those expenditures into the general fund. So it really helped us out by not having to take on additional personnel and additional expenditures in the general fund to take away from these increases.
How much was the amount for the insurance that
We were looking at going up $55 per employee per month to go from $245 to $300. Overall, let's see where we are.
That looks like about 93,000.
It's about $660 per employee, and then about 750 of us, about 1.1 million. 1,155,000.
So that $55 benefits what percent of our,
Right now, it'd be about 52 or 53%. that are taking the district's health insurance. We would hope that with the district picking up more of a cost and being more competitive with our peers on that we would be able to entice more employees to be able to take that, so that it would be more utilized. So right now, it's about 53%.
Mr. Colton, what is the cost for an individual to take our health insurance?
Right now, I believe the most inexpensive plan we have for employees only is about $300 a month. Maybe a little bit more with the district's current contribution of $245. So that would reduce the employee cost to somewhere around $250 to $275 for the employee-only coverage.
The employee cost will be $215, is what you said?
It'd be, the employee cost would be about $250 to $275, and then the district's cost would be the $300 per month.
Okay.
So, Mr. Collins, so the work of this proposal puts us right in at balanced. So anything extra would put us in a negative.
So right now, with where we are in terms of open positions and getting those positions hired and filled, this is our best guess at getting us balanced, yes, sir.
And then what does it do for our fund balance?
It should carry fund balance essentially forward. There might be a little bit of an increase, 100 to 200,000 when we're operating, $125, $126 million budget. I would tell you that's virtually balanced. To be really candid with you, sir, it does give us a little bit of operating room, because knowing from here through next year, every expenditure that's going to come our way is just not the magic 8 ball that I have. So it would give us a little bit of flexibility operations-wise, probably 200 to 300,000, upon which we could go in and do different things throughout the course of the year. But if next year is like this year, I anticipate we will use most, if not all, of those funds.
Thank you.
Has there been any consideration in giving a one-time lump sum payment like at the beginning of the year instead of spreading it out over the 12 months?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. Formulating it essentially like a retention bonus or retention stipend. We have looked at that a little bit. One of the big concerns that we have with, it's two-pronged, but one of the big concerns we have, anytime we're making that payment that's not that periodic payment, like your traditional monthly or semi-monthly payment, you're making that extra payment in there. The IRS has mandatory withholding requirements. They're going to be much higher, like 24%, much higher than your traditional paycheck withholding. So it really, overall, would benefit our employees more to have that in a regular paycheck than it would be a special one-time payment. While they would see the funds as extra funds and things to do, they would have more funds withheld than they really would need to by having that extra payment. There's also a little bit of a concern, the second part of that is there's a little bit of a concern about how those payments would be viewed for TRS retirement calculations. Depending on what they are for and how they are reported, those would not be creditable compensation for our employees. So those would be our two big hurdles that we would really need to look at before doing any type of special payment coming out to our employees that way.
Can I add, Mr. Colden? I took a look at our insurance rates, and our lowest employee-only insurance is $556 per month, and then with our 300, that would make the employee cost $256.
This was in the ballpark.
Yeah. I just want to make sure we had right numbers.
I apologize for being late. We may have addressed this, but I
Yes,
have
sir.
my concern with the stuff that I've read is we try to work through raises, which we try to do that every year. I know. Get everybody inside. My concern with how the state is doing the teacher allotment,
Yes, sir.
and the way I read that, and I could be incorrect, is it's not guaranteed after about 2 years. So how does that affect our pay schedule and all that? Because I realize that if in our current budget situation, if they were to not fund that in the future, there's not enough money there to continue at the present rate. So how does that work? And you may have done that while I was gone, but I still have to ask. So.
No, sir. We didn't actually talk about that piece. Yes, there is a reading of House Bill 2, the way it was adopted, that calls into question the longevity of these allotments. To be really honest, anytime it's a special allotment, it's a special line, there can really easily be legislation filed that will cancel that out at any point. So there is a little bit of a concern there. When we were talking in the spring, I believe we talked a little bit about there were two different funding bills. We preferred the House funding bill because it added the funds to the basic allotment, which was much less likely to get canceled or reduced than the Senate's version that added funds and special allotments. So yes, it is a concern of ours. Realistically, the fact that it targeted teachers, I believe, reduces the likelihood that it's going to get reduced or eliminated or taken away. I honestly worry more about some of these other allotments, including the allotment for basic cost, which would have just as large of an impact on our district as would be taking some of these other allotments away. But I'm not as concerned today with the teacher retention allotment going away. Could it be reduced? Could it be modified? Yes. But I don't really see that on the horizon right now, but I don't know where we'll be in the legislative session of 2027. And so that is an ever-present reality that's in the back of our minds as we start preparing for 27-28 budget year. But right now, I don't anticipate that that's going to be the first domino to fall. Yes, sir.
I had earlier, when we were going through where we stood with other districts.
Yes, ma'am.
We were far above on the leadership category. And I wanted a little bit of an explanation on that.
So your instructional leadership is that lighter blue bar, and that is going to be your directors, generally within the district. We know that Midlothian had a really big restructuring over in their area, and that helped pay for some of their increases that they were able to do for staff in years past. That's not been a route that Waxahachie ISD has undergone. But overall, I would tell you that with Midlothian as the outlier, we're not terribly out of line with anybody else. And in the world that we're living in with CCMR and accountability, I think that our directors are really doing the jobs that we need them to do to make sure that our students are knowing what they need to know and ready for all of the assessments that the state are preparing for us.
Yes, my question was really, I wasn't aware what leadership, which
Yes, ma'am.
kind of leadership it was. If it was the principals.
So the darker blue is campus leadership, and the
Okay.
lighter blue is essentially a district leader, whatever that may be. That may be your CT director, that may be a curriculum director, that may be essentially a director somewhere in the district that is geared towards student instruction and student achievement. So your maintenance director would not be in there, they'd be in 51. You would have transportation would be in 34, athletics would be in 36. So you have some directors that'll be spread out in other functions, but for the most part, these are your academic directors that are going to be that lighter shade of blue.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Calden, not that you have to give me a detailed answer, just maybe a highlighted answer. What is this restructuring that Midlothian did?
So a couple of years back, I want to tell you 2 years ago, they went in and evaluated pretty much every position in the district, kind of like our budget reduction committee, and they identified some really deep cuts in some areas, and within some of those areas were more administrative in nature and less on campus. They still addressed some on campus, but there was a lot at the administrative level.
Mr. Calden, you may be getting there because I know we got caught up in questions. Are you going to cover some detail about the 3% admin raise?
No, sir. You essentially saw the end of my slides.
Okay.
So I'm open for your question.
Who all does that include?
That would be essentially everybody that's on the administrative scale, except the superintendent. Her compensation is set by contract. I would also not include mine. But other than that, it would be essentially everybody else on the administrative scale.
Thank you.
And that would be assistant principals, directors, principals, executive directors, all those positions.
When was the last time that we did a admin raise?
So other than the year that we're currently in, we've done an increase for staff every other year. In terms of looking at compensation, like comparable compensation, I believe it's been 4 or 5 years since we did a compensation study to look at how does our admin compared with other admin districts of our size within the area or within our region or within the state. So it's been a while since we've done the compensation study, but we have done increases for staff every year except for 24, 25.
We did that 2019-20. That was the last year.
Okay.
And then like if we hire, say, a new principal, is their compensation on par with, say, more current day compensation?
So it's a really tough question to answer because we do our compensation essentially what is fair for all who are in this similar type position. So we look at experience, we look at where our scale is. We do not necessarily pick on an elementary principal. We don't necessarily bring in an elementary principal who's in year 1 of being an elementary principal at the midpoint or the max end of our scale because that would be unfair to those that are currently here. There is a little bit of wiggle room within our scale. There's a min, a mid, a max. But while I do not set the compensation, there is a little bit of, it's not a rigid step schedule for those positions. So some latitude exists to be able to adjust down or adjust up, to be competitive with market, but it's not that we don't run to the max of our scale just to say, oh, well, so-and-so will offer this. So we do have to be fair and competitive with the market, but we have to be fair to our existing employees as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So how is it that people move from like the midpoint to the max? I mean, I've always been under the understanding that you pretty much were stuck there ever, so they can move?
I don't mind adding a
Okay.
little, okay. When I'm looking at administrative salaries, I use a formula that looks at all of their teaching years, up to 8 years of experience, and then all admin years. And then I compare their salary to others in the cohort so that I'm not bringing someone in above an incumbent. So I make some comparisons there. Does that answer your question?
I guess so, that's
Okay.
just a little bit, we kind of changed it to start out
Okay.
since you've been in charge of it, I guess, because that's not the answer I've heard in the past.
Okay, so we've been doing this process for, I think this is going into our third year. About 2.5, 3 years ago, we did look at what at that time was pay grades 5 and 6 and implemented the formulaic method. And I've been using that since then.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions?
I have a comment, though. One of our core values is to honor and support all those that positively impact our students.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's why I feel so strongly about Waxahachie being competitive, and I asked for that 58. I mean, I'd like to beat Midlothian, but I know we can't, and also the 8%. If you look at our scorecard too, the very first one, every student's going to grow every year. Who does that? You know? And I just feel like we need to do whatever we can do.
I completely do not agree, or do not disagree with you. I know it's many double negatives, but I'm trying to form a thought in my head as I talk, which is always a bad idea. I agree completely with you, Mr. Merman. And also, I zoom out a little bit and I say, yes, all who positively impact the lives of our kids. So it's our transportation.
That's everybody.
Yes, absolutely.
Every
It's our
single
transportation
person.
workers, it's our custodians, it's our child nutrition. And so in focusing on making sure that all staff are receiving an increase, I do feel a little bit hamstrung by priority 4, and that would be that being good stewards of taxpayers' resources. And so I believe that a balanced budget, especially for a recurring cost, is a really strong statement for our taxpayers. We're not spending ourselves into a deficit, we're not spending ourselves into a hole. And so I want to be able to give our staff everything that we can within the confines of being good stewards of our resources. I do not want us going out to our community and saying, hey, we can't support, basic utility cost. Please buy our brownies or approve this bond for school desks. And those are the things I think that we should be taking care of, and that's part of that being a good steward of resources.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to balance it in the deficit either. I don't run my house that way. But I do feel strongly that Waxahachie needs to be competitive
Yes, ma'am.
and pay more than Red Oak and Ennis.
Well, and it is unfair sometimes to put up some of these charts and some of these comparatives, because just because we're in the same county, just because we're in County 070 for purposes of alphabetical through the state and part of our county district code, just because we're in the same county does not mean we're the same. And so it is tough for us to compare ourselves to Midlothian sometimes. It's easy on paper to say, oh, we should pay what Midlothian's paying. It sounds great in theory, except we have different standards on how many schools we have, the enrollment of each school, the makeup of our students are different. Our kids may or may not come with the same support at home. They may or may not come with the same economic advantages or disadvantages that you're going to find in Midlothian. So that is one of the really hard things of comparing us with other districts. But I get the basic tenor behind your comment. Absolutely, we want to do what we can for our staff. We want them to stay here. We want them to be happy and enjoy their working at Waxahachie ISD. We know some of that comes through compensation. We also know that some of that comes with the support that they feel from their campus leadership, district leadership. We also know that having a positive working environment is one of those key factors that builds into that as well. So it's everything that we can do to make sure that our culture and climate are in the right spots, and that's going to vary by campus. But one thing that we can go a long way in helping do is making sure, to your original point, that we are being competitive with our compensation. And that is in the form of salary, that's in the form of benefits, that's in the form of working environment. So I believe, Ms. Timmerman, that we share the same common desires. How we get there may look a little bit different, and that's fine. That's good for us to, that enables us to have a good conversation that will benefit our staff in the long run. So I thank you for your input and your feedback, and I appreciate where you're coming from.
You know, we've already lost a lot of good people, and I can just see us losing a lot more in the future if we don't do something more.
Okay.
I want to commend you and your staff for bringing this compensation plan. It was more than what I thought it was going to be. Everybody always wants more. And more importantly, I want to commend you for bringing that under a balanced budget.
Thank you,
'Cause
sir.
I know some of our other districts in the state are trying to dig themselves out of a hole for adopting a deficit budget last year, and some are even considering doing it this year.
And I concur with Dusty. It's very important that we pass a balanced budget. I was talking with a group of my leadership TASB people, and they were coming in with the numbers. And it was like, and congratulations, Waxahachie, you had a balanced budget, and we were one of the very few out of this list of school board members. But the 1.3 million, I still, I understand what you're presenting, what the state's giving us, and that's great. No, it's not great, but anyway, but you know what I'm saying. So we've got that money, but the 1.3 million, I just wonder if you could look at it again and see if there's anything, because I know that the feeling was that was going to go, at that time, we thought that's all we were gonna get. So, I don't know, I'm a kind of a numbers person, but I have to see them. I just have to see the numbers. So my suggestion would be to go back and look at that. I'm not opposed to this budget, but I would like to add to it if we possibly could.
Okay.
And one other thing, have we ever really talked to Baylor Scott and White about the idea of putting in a clinic for our staff?
I don't
And
believe.
a partnership.
Yes, ma'am. I don't believe, and if any of my peers have any more info on it, I invite them to chime in. I know last year or the year before, we talked with a consultant about the possibility, what would that look like, what would the startup be? But I don't believe, no ma'am, to your question, there have ever been direct conversations with Baylor Scott and White about setting up that partnership. At the time, the consultant told us it would be about $1 million to establish one and get going. Could some of those costs be mitigated by a partnership? They maybe absolutely could, I don't know. But no, at that point, hearing that cost, it was more important and more pressing and urgent that we put that $1 million back into staff compensation and not the benefit of a clinic within our district. So no ma'am, no additional work has been done since that time on that clinic option.
I just think that would be a huge benefit, especially if we could get it at a reasonable price for our staff.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Calden, I just want to say thank you as well for presenting us this option, but preserving the balanced budget. I think it's imperative that we, maintain that balanced budget. We've got hopefully, another elementary school opening in the future, and then we have comprehensive high school number 2. So we have to be good stewards of this money because we're going to need the money when those schools open. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Staff also.
I echo those same feelings. I just want to say thank you. It's tough.
you.
I appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, board.
Okay, go ahead.
Just to finish the last slide, only because it has like 8 words on it, and I spent a lot of time here. Next workshop will be August 11th at 4, as this will be our 4th workshop as we kind of go through the tax rate, the total budget. This will be part of that process that you guys are familiar with, where we would do our normal 3rd workshop. This time it's going to be our 4th. So August 11th will be our next one.
Anyone else? Okay, at this time, the board's going to convene into closed session according to section 551.001 et sec of the Texas Government Code. It is now 4:52 p.m. 5:13, the board's going to reconvene back into open session. Next item on our agenda is our open forum. This is the portion of the board meeting where the board receives input from each patron. Each person who addresses the board will have 5 minutes to speak on his or her issue. Because of posting requirements of the Open Meetings Act, board members will not ask questions of the patron nor answer any questions posed by the patron. No action can be taken on any issue presented during the patron comment section of the board meeting. Patrons addressing the board will be notified when they are approaching the last 60 seconds of their allotted time to speak. When I call your name, please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Leslie Jerkash. Mr. Jerkash, Mr. Pittsill will be your timekeeper, okay?
My name is Leslie Yurkash. I live at 103 Chapman Circle in Waxahachie, Texas, 75165. Can I start? Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Leslie Yurkash, and I'm going into my 16th year with WISD. I'm not just a teacher, I'm a mom, a homeowner, taxpayer, and community member. I'm very nervous too. I've been at Northside Elementary for all 16 of my years with WISD. And this year going back to Northside is going to look different. We have had a lot of teachers, many dear friends leave. And people are not leaving because of Northside. They are not leaving because of the school's administration or coworkers or students. They are leaving because they are choosing a different career or moving to a district where they can make more money for their family. Outside of Northside, there are a lot more teachers leaving this district. Teachers that have been here a long time. Teachers who are incredible educators and people. The district will definitely fill these losses. As a teacher in WISD for 16 years, my salary is $62,818. After deductions, that is roughly $53,000. Each month my paycheck is deposited. It is roughly $3,900. Thankfully, I'm an employee-only health insurance carrier, otherwise it would be much less. Meaning I am living on roughly $47,000 a year, not counting Christmas bonus. I'm sure you know that is not a livable wage. Renting even a modest house in Waxahachie costs $2,200 or more, with the mortgage being even higher. That is over 50% of my monthly income, which is considered severely cost burdened by HUD. This is not sustainable for educators or this district long term. Because of this, I work a second job on the weekend. My car is paid off, my mortgage is reasonable, and yet I could stand to get a third job for extra money and savings. On top of that, each year health insurance goes up, and I, like most of your staff, get a pay cut. Each year property taxes go up and I get another cut. Then there is inflation affecting car and home insurance rates, groceries, and gas, leading to more cuts. I'm not telling you this because I want sympathy or to share a sob story. I want to share the realities of what a lot of the teachers in your district are facing. Teachers in Waxahachie ISD deserve to bring home a livable wage. They deserve to be able to focus on their profession without worrying about how they are going to have grocery money the last 2 weeks before payday. They deserve more than a 1% raise when that does not come close to matching average inflation, especially post-COVID inflation. And most importantly, WISD students deserve to have a teacher in their classroom who is taken care of by their district. I often say that you can't fix what you don't know about. And I'm not sure you know what the atmosphere is like with a lot of your staff right now. Last year, not getting TIA, I was one of the teachers, was a huge blow in more ways than just money. All of the extra work that went into that and the attendance factor hanging over our heads for a whole year, only to find out we get nothing in return. Then we found out the Group 11 employees were getting $50,000 raises each, which is more than I actually bring home in 1 year. For years, we have been told that there was no extra money, that the district was getting the same funds from the state as they were in 2019, and teachers stayed for the most part. Then this past year, we found out about the Group 11 raises, and the talking between teachers began. How did the person in charge of finding money, who had not been able to find money in the past, find the money needed to give Group 11 employees that big of a raise? This type of move leads to teacher distrust, teachers feeling confused, underappreciated, and like we have been lied to. I want this to come across as professional but real. I want you to know what people are feeling and talking about, because if you don't know, you can't address it. Next week, I will walk into Northside Elementary to start year 16. I will walk
You
in
have 60
excited
seconds.
and ready to spend my year with an amazing administration who support and cheer me on, coworkers who encourage each other and are always willing to help, and students who need us. I'm proud to call Northside and the people that feel at home. WISD used to be known as a place that teachers wanted to be a part of, and I want that back. I want to open a graphic with our new pay scale, and I want to be proud. I want to share it on Facebook and have people tell me how lucky we are. I want a superintendent and board who is going to promise to do better for teachers and their families. If what is proposed tonight isn't good enough, isn't something to be proud of, and isn't a significant raise to teachers and staff in this district, please vote no. Stand up for us and what is right. We are counting on you. I'm available for any questions. I don't know what the rainy day fund is, but I think it's raining in our district. I don't understand the fund, but something has to be done. We have lost a lot of teachers, great teachers, and I think it's time to take risks and do something big to keep us. I appreciate your time. I'm sorry I was shaking, but thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item on our agenda by reports, be an informational report on WISD 2025-2026 cell phone policy.
Good evening, Board. A very hot topic around, along with budgets and raises, cell phone policy. As I'm sure many of you are aware, that the legislature most recently passed a law that will prohibit, or let me say, it requires us to develop a policy that will prohibit the use of personal communication devices on school property during school hours. So in communication with our policy consultants, this is the policy that we are proposing. Again, this is just informational, but barring any changes, I will be coming to you at the next board meeting for an approval of this policy. Now, one of the, excuse me, one of the big issues is use versus possession. Our policy is not asking to prohibit possession. It is prohibiting use. So students will still be asked to have their phones with them, but they need to be put away and put off, because the two options are to prohibit possession from school property during school hours, or prohibit the use or require students to put the phones in a secure location. Now, we are certainly interested in guidance from TEA, which, according to, as of even last Thursday's superintendent call, that will be coming. We're not sure when that will be coming, but supposedly TEA is also developing rules and policy recommendations. Now, talking about prohibiting use and requiring a secure location. That can be, some schools have bags that each student puts those in. Some will have locker-type devices. I've heard that those are certainly sufficient. I have also heard, even from the commissioner this last week, that a backpack is technically sufficient for a secure location. So that is what we are recommending. Notice the last bullet there does talk about confiscation, that our staff, administrative staff, ideally, well, it will be administrative staff, will be the ones that, if there's a violation of this policy, that the phone will be confiscated, and we will have processes on how that phone will be returned to the student or the student's parents.
Mr. Cable?
Yes, ma'am.
So, back to that, so the teachers are not going to be responsible for taking it up, it's going to be
We are,
administration?
sure, we are in discussion about that. Certainly, we don't want to cause any greater disruption to the learning environment by having that become any sort of adversarial situation. So this is really something that we'll training our APs and principals to handle. Now, obviously, teachers will see these phones, and they will certainly be trained on how to handle those situations, but they're not the primary person to enforce this policy. Yes, ma'am. Now, as you can see in this policy, it does say personal communication device. That is being interpreted to be many things, certainly a cell phone, a smartwatch, even headphones, personal computing devices. things that students would use for personal communication, right? Because even these days, even earbuds can receive text, maybe even send, I'm not sure, but I know that some can receive. So those are all in this policy under the term personal communication device. This particular part, as I was talking about, if a device is confiscated, it will be returned to the student or the parent. If it is not picked up by the student or the parent, we have to have a process in place, one, to either keep the device indefinitely or to follow required laws of notifying them before we dispose of it. So we chose to encourage the second version. We do not want to hold on to these things forever. So there is a prescribed process of giving notification to parents or students both on how they need to come and pick up the device before we dispose of it. And lastly, there has been quite a bit of conversation with our community, parents all over the state, certainly concerns about students that have particular situations, IEPs, individualized education programs, 504 plans with accommodations, or other medical situations. So as you can see in the law and in the policy we're suggesting, there are provisions that allow for phones, personal communication devices to be used in these specific situations. Notice, as I mentioned, IEPs, 504s, or directive from a qualified physician. Also, there's been some concern about, well, what about, an emergency situation? Well, as you can see, this number 3, that would fall under that because that would require a student to comply with other health and safety requirements that we have for the protection of students and staff. So just to remind the board, this is a local policy. FNCE is where it falls, so it will require board approval. Again, this is just the first presentation of it, so again, there's nothing required of the board this evening. Certainly, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them, but we will be looking for approval of this policy at the next board meeting. It is required, technically, to be in place before September 18th. Any questions? Thank you all very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next item is our consent agenda. It's probably the shortest one I've ever seen. We have items A through D up for consideration. We have a motion by Mr. Schofield,
Second.
second by Mr. Pitts. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries 6-0. Moving into action item, our first action item A was consideration with possible action to approve the 2025-2026 WISD Student Code of Conduct. You shouldn't have sat down.
I guess I should have stayed up here. Hello, board. Yes, again, I'm sure you're all aware, but the Student Code of Conduct is required to be approved by the school board. And we, with the recent legislative changes, we got information quite recently, just mid-July, and so we have been working diligently to prepare our Student Code of Conduct. There were many legislative changes, many that affect us as a school district. I'm going to talk to you a few things that are only related to the Code of Conduct. So these are just the legislative changes related to the Code of Conduct. House Bill 6, that is just a very few words, but that is the bill that changed Chapter 37, which is the chapter regarding the vast majority of disciplinary procedures that we use in the state of Texas for school districts. You can see a few things that are mentioned there. I'm just talking about some of the highlights. Largely, our Code of Conduct comes to us from our policy consultant, and that is what we are presenting with minor changes. But again, sorry, back to House Bill 6, many changes in disciplinary procedures. I will highlight a few of them this evening. House Bill 1481, which we just talked about, cell phone policy, Senate Bill 326, not getting quite as much discussion, but it is something affecting our code of conduct, and it is in there. Notice it uses a very specific definition of anti-Semitism that is in the education code, that if there's a violation of the code of conduct, then we have a very specific definition to see if a violation of anti-Semitism has occurred. And also Senate Bill 569, if you notice there, virtual and hybrid education. You may be kind of flashing back to the COVID days. It is not exactly the same, but it is related. And if you notice very carefully that it does say that we are now mandated to consider virtual and hybrid education, which we are doing. Some districts are further along and have greater plans than we have in place at this time, but we are certainly looking into it as we are required. So here are a few highlights of how the code of conduct has changed and certainly will affect how we are doing discipline with certain violations. Nicotine delivery product, e-cigarette, vapes as they're often referred to. In my relatively short time in administration, this has changed with every legislative session, and yet, again, it has changed. So now we are not required to send students to DAP. However, we may. If we do not, then they must go to ISS for 10 days. Now, that may cause some of you to think that doesn't sound right. That is very new, because if you move on to the second one, notice now, ISS, there's no time limit. However, there is a 10-day review that is required every 10 days and documentation to determine whether or why a student needs to maybe continue beyond that 10 days for ISS. OSS, out-of-school suspension, has not really changed. However, as you can see, for the categories of students below grade 3 or homeless, they may receive out-of-school suspension, which is generally something that we are prohibited from doing. However, the first and the fourth items in that list are not new. The two in the middle are new. So it does allow us to out-of-school suspend students below grade 3 or homeless if they are threatening the health or safety of other students, or if they are documented repeatedly disrupting class. Expulsions, again, that is a similar situation. Not a lot of changes. I will say that we are waiting for guidance from the state. I tried to access the form just today, and it is not ready, but there have been some changes in discretionary versus mandatory expulsion reason codes. But if you notice here, you may be reading that and thinking, well, that's not much different than it was, but in fact, notice it does say using or threatening use of a firearm. So that kind of makes it a little bit, the threshold a little bit lighter. Then lastly, formal teacher removal rules. Those, although that has been in place for many years, there have been some changes to that process that will require some meetings and the potential for appeal by students and their families. But otherwise, those are the highlights of the Code of Conduct for 25-26, and we are asking the board for approval. Any
Questions for Mr. Cagle?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know how many kids we had in JJAEP last year?
We had approximately 12 students.
So this, on that earlier slide where it said virtual, was it talking about not sending kids there and doing virtual with them?
So the thought is, in the groups that I'm speaking with, to try and understand what's going on, it is our current interpretation, and again, we are waiting for state guidance, but it is our interpretation that since they have changed some of the mandatory expulsion rules, that the thought is for counties that do not have a JJ, that they will have an option for providing services, education for those students, or in the case of our JJ, which, if I'm not mistaken, maximum is about 24 students. So you can imagine if there are more mandatory expulsions for certain offenses, our JJ could fill up very quickly, in which case then we'll need to figure out how to provide education for those students that aren't able to get into our JJ but have committed an offense that is mandatory expulsion.
You know, before JJAEP, well, this is back when I was at the junior high, we used to have to, when we expelled a kid, we had to supply some kind of form of education.
Yes, and I think that it is a return to that because there is the anticipation that there are not going to be enough JJAEP spots. And so we'll need to be providing education for students that are committing these serious offenses.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve action item A as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Timmerman,
Second.
second by Mrs. Kriegel. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, sir. Action item B will be consideration with possible action to approve Board Policy Update 125 and policies FD local and FM local.
Lots of policy things this evening. So board, this is just a continuation from the last board meeting where I presented Policy Update 125 and FM local and FD local. The documentation is the same, so we are asking approval of those policies.
Questions? Comments? Okay, I entertain a motion to approve action item B as presented. Motion by Mr. Schofield,
Second.
second by Ms. Timmerman. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Say nay. Motion carries 6-0. Thanks, sir.
Thank you all very much.
Action item C was consideration with possible action to approve the posting of the proposed M&O maintenance and operations and the INS interest in seeking tax rates for the 2025-2026 school year. Mr. Caldwell.
Thank you, sir. Board, we have gone through the process of receiving the certified values from the appraisal district. We have started the process of submitting the taxable value information to the state of Texas to get their approval of our MCR maximum compressed tax rate. Based on the information we have today, we are proposing holding the tax rate steady from what it was last year. With the increase in the homestead exemption that is proposed for taxpayers from $100,000 to $140,000 to be voted on in November, it does reduce our taxable values to about a 1% increase from last year, and that's under the compression threshold for the state of Texas. So it does enable us the ability to keep our M&O rate the same. Our INS rate is still within the parameters that we established with the 2023 bond program. With your direction back in June, you authorized us to issue additional funds to take advantage of the homestead exemption or the additional state aid for the increased homestead exemption with bonds. And so we are in the process of completing that, and we'll give you an update when we have the numbers from interest. But all that to say, we're still in bounds, still in line with our 2023 bond model and program. So it's a recommendation for your consideration to post the tax rates of 75.52 for M&O and 41.29 for INS, a total tax rate of $1.1681 additional cents.
Mr. Calden, could this change after you submit the value, everything TEA?
Realistically, it could. If it does, it would go down. So adopting or your approval of posting these rates would be a ceiling, and it could come in a little bit lower. It will not be any higher than the $1.1681.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Okay, I entertain a motion to approve action item C as presented.
I move that we approve action item C. as
Motion by
presented.
Mr. Pitts. Second. By Mr. Cooper. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries 6-0. All right, our last action item will be consideration with possible action to approve the 2025-2026 WISD staff compensation plan.
Good evening, Board. In the last hour, we talked a lot about the compensation plan, answered questions, and we bring the plan to you this evening for approval.
Mr. Autry, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the plan as presented, but, I'm sorry.
Hold on, she started the motion, you can go to the discussion part. Okay.
Okay, anyway, that we approve the plan as presented, but with the directive or whatever for y'all to look to find if there's any way we can give more to staff than what is presented in the plan. I understand it's imperative that we pass the plan, but I'd like to see it improved between now and August the 11th. Or at least have a presentation.
Okay, so we have a motion. Is there a second? A motion by Ms. Kriegel. That was second by Mr. Schofield. Now for discussion.
Okay. I would like to see us wait on voting until we can come back with figures for, starting out with 58 to 8%, the nurses, librarians, and nurses getting the same as teachers, everything else I suggested.
Mr. Collins, based on the discussion we had earlier, do you anticipate being able to do that and still keeping us in a balanced budget?
In all honesty, we'll have to look at modifying that health insurance component. That'd be the first thing that we would have to look at reducing. Truly, I do not know, sir, at this point, without running those numbers.
I'm just asking for some clarity on the motion. Is it a motion to work on it for over the next 12 months for next year? Or are you talking about getting money together for like a one-time bonus?
Are you asking me or
Yeah.
Dusty to
So-
answer that?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. My motion was to approve tonight, this is the basic, the plan that we're gonna approve. But to look at what else we could do, including if we can include a bonus at the December time as we have in the past. Just-
Did I say something?
That makes
Absolutely,
sense.
it's a discussion part.
Mr. Coleman didn't you already state the bonus is gonna be $200?
Yes, ma'am. A net 200.
Right, and personally, I don't want to prove anything tonight until I hear what I asked for.
So the way I understand the motion to approve the compensation plan as presented with the directive of going back and looking and see if there's any way that you can increase that and keeping us in a balanced budget. If you can't, then it stays the same. If not, we'll just come back and amend the compensation plan.
Okay.
Does that sound right?
That is what I heard. My one question, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask it, but my one question would be, Ms. Kriegel, is the hopes for all staff to receive additional or targeted staff based off Ms. Timmerman's
Targeted
comments?
staff
Okay.
according to Ms. Timmermans.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so you got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have a motion. I'm sorry, do you have more discussion?
I was just saying, so if we approve this as presented tonight, we can come back and amend it.
Yes, sir. You can come back realistically all the way until August 31st.
Okay. I
And
just wanna make
modify
sure.
it because you haven't started the fiscal year.
So we could, I know, Mr. Cooper, we could come back, completely change this if you come back with different numbers,
Yes, sir.
and it would be effective just like this.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. All opposed say nay.
Nay?
Motion carries 5-1. Thank you very much, sir. And our last item will be a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Kriegel, second by Mr. Cooper. All in favor say aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Sorry, 6-0.